Lucky-Oh food course. Today we're going to make Mayacama Banana Bread. And to get started, we've got our ingredients ready to go. Mayacama Banana Bread is a quick bread. So we're going to go ahead and prepare our baking dishes, and we're going to preheat the oven. So I've preheated the oven to 310 degrees. And to prepare the baking dishes, you have two options. You can either use a cooking spray, or you can go with the tried and true method of putting on a vegetable shortening and then flour in the dish. So for today, I'm going to use both methods. So we just take some of our vegetable shortening and we're going to put it in our dish. You want to paint it thoroughly, and then we'll put flour and shake flour in it after this. So we're going to take our loaf pan and we're going to add some flour, and then we'll shake it around. You just want to be sure that you thoroughly coat the entire inside of the pan of the baking dish here, our loaf pan, and when it's finished, you'll have everything on the inside of your loaf pan all covered with the flour. And of course, you're bound to spill a little, so you just wipe it up. For our cooking spray option, it's really just spray it with cooking spray. How easy can that be? Okay, we're ready to get started on the Mayacama banana bread. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to get our bananas. Now, this is really important. You want to have really overripe bananas. The more they look like a leopard or a black panther, the better. So these really want to be ripe, and they add a lot of additional flavor into the banana bread when they're overly ripe. So we're just going to peel them and get them right into our large mixing bowl. Now we're also going to use 2 eggs. One cup of sugar, that's granulated sugar. We've got 1 tablespoon of milk, and then our very special Lucky-Oh Horchata. Our Lucky-Oh Horchata, we're going to use 8 pumps. Now I just went ahead and pre-pumped it and had it in this little serving dish so we could put it right in. But of course, when you're using the pump, you can bring it right over and pump it directly into your bowl, or you can pre-measure it in this way. Now we're ready to go ahead and start mixing our wet items. So once you've really well blended your wet items, we're ready to do our flour and butter mixture that we're going to add into the batter. For the butter, we're going to use a 1/2 cup of butter, and it needs to be melted. So I'm just going to put it right into my measuring cup, but it's important to actually cover it, because otherwise you're going to end up having a mess in your microwave. So I'm just going to cover this right up, and then I'm going to go ahead and microwave it for 30 seconds and check and see how it's doing. As you can see, 30 seconds worked really pretty good, so everything's melted and ready to use. So now we're going to go on and get the flour ready. I've already put 1 cup in, but we're going to need another cup of flour. It's always important that all your ingredients are measured properly. And then we're going to add our 1½ teaspoons of baking powder, 1/2 teaspoons of baking soda, and 1/2 teaspoon salt. Okay, and we're going to blend in our baking soda, baking powder, and salt into the flour. Nice wire whip works perfectly for this. Now we're ready to go ahead and get everything added into our batter. So you want to alternately mix the flour and the butter in, like about thirds. And that way you can get it well blended into the batter. Okay, so we're going to add the last of our butter and flour. And then we're going to get this really well blended, and we'll be scraping the sides of the bowl. scraping the sides of the bowl. We'll do another last mix. And then, so we're finishing the mixing. You just lower the speed carefully and slowly, and you can clean off your beaters. And so our last ingredient is optional, and that's a half a cup of nuts. And you can, if you decide you want to use nuts, you can use pecans, walnuts, hazelnuts, almonds, really, you know, what you like and what's good for your taste. I am using some pecans, and I'm going to get those chopped up and added to the batter, and I'll just be stirring it in. So I'm adding the nuts. I'm going to stir in my pecans. And you know, one of the tips, obviously you can purchase chopped nuts. You do pay a little bit more, premium for that. But one idea is I often will chop all my nuts ahead of time, put them in Ziploc freezer bags, and I put them right into the freezer in half cup or 1 cup serving sizes, and then they're ready to go because the nuts will thaw as soon as you just set them out on the counter, and you're ready to go by the time you need them in the recipe. And we're going to put our batter right into our baking loaf pan. Doesn't that look delicious? When I filled the pan, you want to be sure not to fill it all the way to the rim because it's going to need to expand and bake and puff up. So as you can see, I filled it about 2/3 of the way full. Got it in our loaf pan. We're ready to go. Yeah, it looks great. So we're going to get everything in the oven now. So we're going to go into the oven for 1 hour at 310 degrees, and then we're going to check back and see how it's coming along. Okay, we're ready to check our banana bread, and we're going to insert a toothpick near the center and check to see if it's done. Now it's not quite ready. As you can see, if you close in there, there's still, it needs to pull out clean. So we're going to go ahead and put it back in the oven for a few more minutes. Again, just put it in for another 5 minutes, and look at that. It is ready. Isn't that beautiful? You're going to want to let the banana bread cool for 10 to 15 minutes before you remove it from the loaf pan. We're ready to remove our Mayacama banana bread from our loaf pan. So I'm going to run a butter knife around the edge. We're going to go ahead and invert it. Look at that. Doesn't that look beautiful? All right, and ready to slice it when it's warm. Oh, it's so yummy. Right with a nice little bread knife. Look at how wonderful that looks. The great thing about the Mayacama banana bread is that it's just delicious. You can serve it warm for dinner. You can eat it for breakfast, on the go for lunch. It's wonderful to serve for guests, and it's just absolutely wonderful. When we're going to go ahead and prepare this to save it, I normally will wrap it with our cling wrap, plastic wrap, and then I'll put it into a plastic Ziploc bag, and then it will keep for up to a week. And you can just slice off a piece on the go, eating your wonderful Mayacama banana bread. Thank you for joining us. And remember, everywhere you go, Lucky-Oh.